Quiet on the set. Pick 73.
All right, welcome everybody to the Driving Relationships Podcast, one of the fastest growing podcasts on the car business. I am joined here with,
Today it is me, Zach Kinch.
as always, I'm Austin. So we're going to do a special market news type update.
Yeah.
We want to bring you some more industry related content, just about the car business and our experience as running dealerships and,
For sure.
and fixed operations departments and sales and inventories and all that stuff. So Zach, today was a huge day. Do you know what it was?
No, I did not.
I got an email from Hague Partners with
Oh,
their
big
Hague
release.
Q1 report. So what better way to kick these off than by
Yeah.
going through, hitting a couple of the top items that they had talked about in their report
For sure.
and just how that's impacting dealers. So, the thread throughout obviously is the economy.
Yeah.
There's also always this pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, during pandemic. Like, we're so tired of hearing about it, but it does impact a lot of what we do. So one of the things that, they really touched on, it seems like two things with new cars. They're coming back and they're more affordable. So the other thing is, you run a Toyota store.
Yeah.
And Toyota was one of the best brands in terms of,
For sure.
are
We've
they
been
just
blessed.
invincible or what? So
Yeah.
give me a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of, used car availability and then also affordability with the customer.
Yeah, I think with the Toyota lineup, by all means, we've been blessed across the spectrum of everybody. They've been conservative in what they're actually allocating, building, producing, getting to the customer dealership lots. But with that, also, we have seen the competitive pricing start to happen. There's a giant shift right now with consumers trying to figure out how they can play their part in the electrified vehicle pursuit. And also, what does that look like for the industry as a whole, as I would say, has probably had the biggest marketing shift in the last year be pushed around battery electric vehicles, BEVs. And then also into the market itself, consumers have waited so long to replace their new vehicle. Now it's become the desperation of it's time to do it. But I also think consumers have had to make changes in the last 2 or 3 years that maybe they weren't wanting to make in the marketplace. For example, maybe I wanted a RAV4, but there was none in inventory, so I'm driving a Camry. So what does that look like? So we're actually having buyers for the first time come out of newer vehicles that we've not had in the last 3 or 4 because there is some inventory available for consumers to now start preferencing that's the color I want versus any vehicle available.
What are you guys looking at for pre-orders now? Is that still a thing where customers are putting pre-orders in?
For sure. Pre-orders have regressed quite significantly. Your hybrid vehicles, your new launches, the Land Cruiser, the 4Runner that's coming out, the Tacoma that just got released, those are all still insane. The new Land Cruiser, the stories that we've been sharing, people are preferencing a Land Cruiser and have no clue what color, make, model, price point, and they're paying it, saying, hey, I understand it's going to be between $55,000 and $75,000. I'm paying it because I want one that bad, and it's just been insane. So, yeah, there's still the pre-orders, there's still things like that, but as far as your common vehicles, the new Camry doesn't have significant pre-orders. There's reservations, but not to the degree where we were seeing of Mr. and Mrs. Customer, this is 6 months out. It may be 6 to 8 weeks at this point. So definitely a little more doable. But then you have your standard models that are no pre-orders. We may have 6 Tundras in inventory right now. So we can obviously source and kind of figure out what do you want, where in the past it was truly good luck finding a Tundra.
Yeah. I think one of the things they really talked about was days supply. So, I just for everybody out there who doesn't know, I mean, day supply is pretty significant for dealers, right?
Yeah.
Why does it matter? And then one of the notes they put in here is dealers with the lower day supply are more profitable.
For sure. Yeah, and I think for those that don't understand, like every dealership has a floor plan, and their new car inventory is costing them money to sit in their actual parking lot. And for us, we've been blessed through years and years and years about our floor plan rate. But in the last 2-3 years, our floor plan rates jumped between 5 and 7% with market value. So that vehicle that's sitting on our lot that may be a $70,000 vehicle is also accruing a monthly expense to sit here. So between that alone, you're seeing manufacturers and even dealers now list brand new inventory on the wholesale auction to get rid of that because they can't afford the 7%, 6.5% interest rate. They're paying monthly to have that vehicle on the lot. So kind of insanity across the board there. But the other side of it is in the Toyota world, they're incentivizing you through allocation for how fast you can move that vehicle. So the consumer is benefiting again, which is amazing to finally be able to pass on savings to a customer, because for us to get more inventory, we're being asked to sell the car faster. And the only way to sell it faster is to obviously incentivize pricing and make that more beneficial for the customers. So it benefits the dealer, benefits the customer. It's a win-win. This is when the automotive business works well together.
So if I'm a customer and I'm not brand loyal in any way, and I want the best deal possible,
Yes.
I'm going to go to the brands that have the highest day supply.
Yep. So if you want the best deal, the first thing I would do, I'd drive parking lots. Who has the most new cars, and how many of those new cars look like they've been there for some time? So where do you check? You check rotors, you check tires. If it's on your same route and you're looking, where's that car located? Usually your new cars with the biggest discounts are also getting pushed far and farther back in inventory because employees are walking around them. They're used to seeing them 30, 60, 90, 100 days. Also, third-party websites, Carfax. Believe it or not, new cars still have Carfax. So they'll show the date that obviously the dealer received it. And usually anybody's dealer website would still show how many days they've had the car in inventory. So those would be the ways for you, the consumer, to kind of buy the best deal, bang for your buck.
See what else I can pull out here. So franchises with the highest sales growth year over year: Lincoln, 31.5%, Toyota, 21.5%, Volkswagen, and Honda. And then there was an interesting point here about Kia and Hyundai Genesis. So Kia and Hyundai Genesis started to pick up a lot of market share.
Yeah.
But in Q1, they're dipping back a little bit, mostly because the inventory is coming back on some of the bigger brands like Toyota and Honda.
For sure.
I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah. And what have you seen? Obviously, you spend some time in the Kia and Hyundai stores. I know you don't deal directly with Variable, but what have you seen as far as their inventory on ground?
Yeah, I mean, I think, from a Hyundai perspective and Kia, they are pumping out a lot of cars, right? And so, again, kind of going back to this accordion type example, we were oversupplied and then we're undersupplied, and now it feels like Kia and Hyundai are more oversupplied. So I know with the manufacturer, they are incentivized to wholesale cars to dealers and then dealers sell them, but providing and seeing some of those incentive rates come back, right? And seeing some of those payment-driven leases come back has really been interesting in the last little bit.
For sure.
But yeah, I would definitely say, it was neat to see Hyundai steal some market share from like Honda. That was the headline last year. But now maybe it reverses because Honda's, picked up with some of their manufacturing.
Yeah.
So
And it does seem like the Honda brand has come back with some vengeance of market share growth and development. We always laugh right now. It is interesting to have consumers come into the dealership with maybe not the knowledge of where the market is, interest rates, which seems crazy, but I get it. If you're not truly looking to buy a car, if you're not looking to buy a house, you may not actually understand what the market's done incentive-wise or interest rate-wise. So there's always that, surprise shock customer. If I pay 2.9% for 72 months 5 years ago, why can't I get that today? But then the other side of it, too, of some of these manufacturers are coming back with 1.9 for 72, 2.9 for 84 I saw the other day, 0% for 72 in some of these brands. So the part that's intriguing, and this is where I'd inform anybody in the market looking at it, remember that standard money today to borrow money is around 5.5%, 6%. So if a manufacturer is offering you 0%, they want that car gone because it's costing them 5% of marketing money to incentivize said vehicles. So definitely an interesting point for you guys, and if you're in the market taking a look. I know it's definitely a weird spot for us at Toyota because Toyota has come out and said, don't expect us to lease vehicles, which has always been weird because I've been at this location for 10 years and 35 to 45% of our market's always been lease, and now it's instantly 0, 10% probably max. So definitely a shift in the market.
yeah, and I would assume the manufacturer doesn't want to put leases on it because they're like guessing the value that car is going to be at the end of 3 years.
Yeah.
And how hard is that right now?
For sure. And with the Toyota world, obviously kind of a unicorn in this is we still, today as we record this, we only have 33 cars on the ground, new.
Wow. What like at your height, how many did you have?
200, 180, 200 inventory. So definitely a shift there for us to be able to operate. We're operating still at the same similar capacity because, again, when we had 200, it was no big deal if a car turned 90 days in stock because the floor plan rate we referenced earlier was just 1%. So it didn't really cost you to have that vehicle, 2%, I think, at the highest. But for us, again, it's been a shift of how do we do business? How do we help consumers make decisions faster, more convenient, more transparent, which has been a big push of ours to make sure that the customer gets all the information up front so that when the car arrives, it's an easier buying decision than, hey, let me go drive this one again. Let me go see what it feels like. And I think also the shift is everybody's okay buying a little unknown now. I mean, the fact that my grandparents were ordering groceries to be delivered to their house versus going to a grocery store,
Right.
that all did shift with COVID. As the report kind of referenced, the post-COVID era has changed everybody. So it's just a matter of how much do we as a dealership and company want to embrace change.
So next we got to get into profitability because there were quite a few pages in this report that dealt with gross profit declines. And here's what I would ask you. Why are fixed operations the only ones that are like making money still? You know, why is variable so bad?
Let me see those papers. Austin, why is fixed operations the only one that's making money, fixed director?
No, you know, I think it's interesting when you look at, you know, the total dealership of the kind of profits that you're making, not only on the front end gross of the car, but also the back end gross of the car. You know, now this report and saying that, you know, 2022 was the height, according to the public company data. And then in 2023, and then now we're in Q1 of 24, it has continued to go down insignificantly, $1,400 per car, you know, for a round trip. So is that similar to what you guys are seeing? What plays into that?
Yeah, I mean, so we're actually, according to that report, we're the unicorn in the room. We're trending up this year over 2023, but that's still primarily due to the inventory shortage with Toyota. Because there's only 30 on the ground, we're still seeing, you know, premiums being paid by consumers to get these vehicles. And it is insane. I mean, we truly will have customers leave on a Saturday evening and say, you know what, we'll come back Monday. We just want the weekend to sleep on. And we don't push that. We allow that. I get it. I'd be in the same boat. I'm somebody that doesn't need more time to make a decision, but it's going to tell you I do to make sure I feel comfortable with it. And unfortunately, we're having consumers buy that car before they arrive back Monday morning. There's just so limited inventory out there that Toyota still sees premiums. The other brands, when I talk to the general managers, are truly struggling. I mean, they went through this 3-year period of, I have the car, pay me this price. And if you don't want to pay me this price, that's fine. Someone else will buy it. To now going, I have 100 cars on the ground. What am I going to do to get rid of these cars? So it's been a shift where that floor plan rate we referenced again is costing dealers $100, $300, $500, $600 to sell the car because of how many days in inventory. So it's that my profit margin is going down, my expense to own the car is going up, which is only reducing the profit significantly more. So you're seeing multiple dealers play the game out of desperation and not kind of the business plan of how do I maximize.
It seems like it all goes back to supply and demand economics, where it's like, okay, let's just simplify this extremely simply. We have a high supply, a low demand. We're going to have to lower our price, right? If we have a low supply, high demand, we're going to have to raise our price.
True.
And so,
if I would have known that in college,
I know, right? You would have gotten a degree.
So much easier.
There it is. So, yeah, I find it interesting. So what about the finance department? Because obviously the interest rate market, I would feel like we're making a ton of money on interest rates.
Yeah, the exact opposite. Because it's so competitive and it's so high, consumers are already kind of stretched to that tolerance.
Yeah.
And there is a fear of the refinance. I mean, obviously, you got to sit here and think, if I told you today you had to buy a house at 7%, but you're accustomed to paying 3%, the moment you can get closer to 3%, what are you going to do with that house?
Yeah, refinance.
And that's what consumers are going to do with auto loans as well. So there's definitely a fear in that side. Where it has shifted is, as everybody knows, your car now has more cameras, more technology, more features. And let's be honest with everyone, we just came out of COVID, and all of this supply chain happened due to, at least the media sharing with us, being a microchip shortage. And guess what your vehicle is just loaded with? Microchips. So for a department that's going to have a conversation with actually some context that's true, finance is really developing a strong pull on those VSCs penetrations, which is vehicle service contract, extended warranties. And we've actually seen that penetration grow. And then on top of that, all of your cars are becoming more expensive, which means that coverage is also increasing as well. I think I saw a report, and you may know this with the body shop. It actually came from my insurance company that I self-insure, or that I auto-insure through, raising my rates. And they showed like the difference between 2022 and 2023 of a repair was like over $4,000 increase. And the time went from like 2.5 months to 4.5 months. And then I remember the last part where I was like, man, that's crazy, was the average rental went from like $800 rental to like $2,800.
Yeah.
So crazy across the board where that is. Again, definitely surprised to see it. And if anybody needs insurance, shout out Hoosier, Taylor Schoen, give him a call. We'll go from there.
The unofficial sponsor of
This week's
week's
pod.
market update is Hoosier and Associates. No, so I think it's a perfect segue to, these vehicle service contracts and just repairs and insurance rates going up. So yeah, one of the reasons why they are going up is because we had the parts shortages. You mentioned rental cars. Customers are in rental cars longer because it's taking us longer to source parts for those repairs. I think the other part of it is vehicles are getting more expensive. So they're obviously more expensive to replace. So they're obviously more expensive to insure. Again, another basic economics lesson for you, because I know you like it simple. So,
sure.
but shipping to fixed operations. So
Yeah, I have a question off that for you.
go ahead. I mean, look at how awesome we've done in fixed operations.
Turn it
It's
for
just-
everybody to see
wow.
this. I mean,
Just
this is where
so proud of the work that we've done in keeping these dealerships going, although sales have been lagging,
Well, that's
and
the question I
everything.
have for you, and that is like, it talks about the increase, and obviously I think I have my opinion of where it is, but it talks about customer pay and internal pay increasing. Where have you seen it specifically with, the 4 or 5 different brands you work with? And where do you kind of see the future of the end of this calendar year? Again, big election year, who knows what that does historically in automotive. Kind of pumps the brakes, just like probably in real estate where people go unsure what the future is going to hold, so I'll just wait. Again, we all wake up the next day and nothing ever changes. So
Right.
kind of where do you see the success from, and where do you see it going through the end of the year?
Yeah, I think there's three real verticals here. I'll use my corporate terms that I'm learning. So
Obligated to use.
three big verticals in fixed operations. You have customer pay, internal, and then the one that you did not mention is warranty, which I think warranty is one that we've seen a significant increase due to compensation rates that we get from the manufacturer. So a lot of people don't realize that the manufacturer, and a lot of this is set by state law, state codes, that okay, we have to reimburse you at a retail rate for labor and also parts. Well, what we've seen is the labor shortage with technicians. We've had to pay technicians more to be competitive.
Yeah.
So then we are going after obviously increased door rates because we still have to keep our doors open. We have to pay for you guys because you're not selling cars or financing cars, right? So
There we go.
So we're trying to maximize every dollar we can out of those warranty reimbursement rates. So that's been a huge process over the last year or two of, hey, what is our strategy when it comes to the customer pay pricing that in turn allows us to set what the warranty rate is, because the manufacturer is not going to reimburse you more than what you charge customers to do, right? So we're kind of trying to find that middle ground. But, we've seen some significant uplift. There's a bunch of companies out there, a bunch of great companies that help you with that. But, we've worked with Armatus over the last year or so, gotten significant increases in labor and parts. And that's really helped with some of the profitability, because I think we're at a very lean time in dealer operations. So we're having to get the most out of everything. The internal profit, internal really depends on how many cars is the front end pumping through, right? Because, last year at this time, it was much cheaper to acquire assets. And so, I think the goal for inventory levels, it was like, let's just buy. We have cars appreciating on our lot month to month.
Lose.
Like your inventory value appreciates 3 to 5% from month to month. That's ridiculous, right? And so obviously you're buying as many cars as you can. Every single one of those cars has to run through the shop for some sort of inspection or repair. We're booking a ton of money. So I would say that the start of this year, we are down a little bit with internal just in terms of volume. And then, customer pay has been huge. You think about customers are keeping their cars longer from some of the things we already talked about where, interest rates are high. Hey, I got a 2.1% on my van right now. Why would I trade it in?
It's tough.
There's no reason. And so, they're going to keep it and they're going to do those, those 60K services, the 90K services, the over 100,000 mile services that we're seeing. So a lot of us, working on the customer pay angle, as the customers keep the car longer, obviously those repair dollars get to be more and more. So growing the volume with the oil changes and then also just seeing some heavier mechanical repairs that we don't typically see just as cars are aging out.
Yeah, and it seems like kind of to the point of where it's going to be at the end of 2024, it seems like technicians have also now started to look more for where's my long-term home going to be.
Yeah.
And I think it was kind of a wild, wild west for, 21 through 23, really of I go anywhere and anyone's going to give me another dollar or two.
Yeah.
And where it's all starting to kind of slow down, it's looking for who's going to provide me that work-life balance, who's going to provide me that income, Clearly, that should be number one. Then 2 being work-life balance. 3 being who's going to provide me the tools necessary for my development and growth. And I think that's a big one that's really going to be what we look at the end of the year of going, how have we done those things and provided those things to keep this growth? Because clearly the work's going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the good dealers, it's fixed operations is production, right?
Yeah.
So I always use the example of, if you want to sell more used cars, like buy more used cars, right? It's an easy way to get your volume up. But in fixed operations, with it being a production environment, it's a lot tougher to grow. It's a lot slower to grow, but you do that by investing in your people, right? Because you need those people to produce. You need the advisors to take great care of the customers. And then you need enough technicians to where your customers could get in and out in a timely manner. But also not too many technicians because they are paid on a commission basis. So yeah, I think the staffing hurdles definitely are there. But I also don't see technicians moving a lot right now either.
For sure.
So, yeah, let's see what else
I think that's a good point. As you kind of transition it, I think one of the things we've worked really hard on recently is trying to really be on fire for all of our employees, because our belief is that the customer experience should never supersede the employee experience. And that if all of our employees truly believe that we're behind them 110% and giving them that investment, they're going to give our customer that 110% customer experience that we all die for and say we're committed to and strive for, but we all know that we lack in those areas. So we've kind of flipped that coin at the end of this year and saying, how can we give back to employees more than ever? How can we show them that we got their back in development? How can we maybe even give in several different areas to make sure that their compensation's in a way more than market fair, to make sure that they understand we got their back? And I think once we get to that point, employees will take the rest of it and say, hey, they got my back, I got their back, let's go grow this thing together.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we've kind of hit that unicorn, different environment where we're growing our business where others are regressing at this point.
So this is probably going to be a tough way to end.
Oh, boy.
26% decline in dealership profits year over year. When we look back to Q1 of 2022, according to this Hague report, based upon public group earnings, 1.7 million in 2022. Now we're at 1 million in 2024.
Yeah.
So talk about almost a 50% decrease in profitability. How do we as business operators, are we making excuses for that?
Oh,
are
for
we
sure.
we are just battling the economy?
Yeah.
How tough is that?
Yeah, I think I've joked about this. Again, I only know this store. I've only been in Roman Toyota 10 years. I only know this brand, this store, this location. But I think for me, I've looked at it as running a business, not a car dealership. And I think the part that's going to happen right now is those who are running businesses are going to withstand this storm. Those that are playing car dealership and just selling cars, just servicing cars, just hiring technicians are going to spin out of control. And I mean that because I truly believe if I was selling Pringles, if I was selling gas at a gas station, we would still be in the same boat where we're investing in people, we're continuing to develop what we have, continue to build off what we have, and continue to be transparent and just say to people at times, hey, we don't know what the future looks like. And we all may have to take steps back to make sure that we can move forward. But we definitely have a plan. We're going to operate that plan. And I think what we've seen so far, even in our own dealer group, is those dealerships that are new with leadership changes, those dealerships that are going through a culture change are definitely hanging on at this point of going, we're not losing, but we're not growing. We're not gaining. We're not really getting traction. And the dealerships that are withstanding the storm so far are the dealerships with tenureship. The ones that have invested in their people, that have retained them, that maybe at times, especially during the turmoil of COVID to 2023, chip shortage, everything, of where other dealers were growing at shocking rates. Maybe they weren't the most impressive dealers, but now are starting to bloom and really see the fruits of their labor of going, this is why we invest in people long term. This is why we hang on. This is why we stick to the plan, the script, and continue to grow. So it'll be interesting to see by the end of 2024 if that's actually the right plan. Because we may look back at this podcast and go, man, was Zach completely wrong in those words he said?
Yeah, I love it. And that was going to be my next question is, we're battling right now, but what does the future look like? And I think you did a good job of explaining it, kind of my viewpoint on it as well, is this is a storm, right? And we've been through economic storms before. They all look different. They tend to all end with an election one way or another, right?
Sure.
Which we have coming up. So whether right or wrong, these are real things that we have to deal with, but control what you can control.
Yeah.
Get into your stores. There was a lot of stores that made a ton of money, making a ton of mistakes that ruined their reputation because they're ripping customers, they're ripping trades. And now guess what? Those customers are coming back and they're trying to trade these cars in, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Anytime there's a storm, I think it all goes back to, we have to realize we're in the people business. We're in a customer service business. So at the end of the day, no matter what we do, has to have that sort of a focus before profitability, which is very weird, right? It's easier for me to sit here and be like, oh, we're down 40% in net, comparing to 2 years ago. Like, let's just hold the course and stay strong. But, I think you hit the nail on the head there. When this storm is over, the true dealer operators that come out of this and succeed are going to be the ones that have prepared right during it and prepared their staff for it too.
We always make the joke, and I think anyone who's been in the auto industry can attest to this, that tough times make great dealers, great times make bad dealers.
Yeah.
And it's to that point that you just said, is anyone can make money when the lottery is handing out free lottery tickets.
Yeah.
And anyone who wins the lottery is always known to potentially go broke. And I think that's where we've talked a lot to our staff is like, hey, take the blessing of these last 2-3 years as the lottery. You may, in your career, never make this kind of money again. You may never sell this many cars again. You may never service this many cars again. So I think with our team having that mindset, it's also prepared them to be successful in this transition period of going, hey, I'm grateful for what I have. That means I need to start working for what I want and not I'm going to sit back and complain about what we don't have. So it is that mind shift of where do we want to go versus where have we been?
I think the other interesting part out of the last couple of years and just this decline has been, and I know personally for me and then for the teams of the stores and people that I talk to, is there's been a lot more innovation and a lot more process improvements. I feel like that come out of it because you have to.
Yeah.
We both were athletes in college. I use the term loosely because we played golf, but
we were golfers.
You always learn more from your losses or during your losses than you do when you win. And so I think that's what's been, although it's disheartening to see the profits go down when we compare year over year, it's also been kind of cool to see, man, we onboarded that tool or we implemented that process or, hey, here's where we tighten something up.
Yeah, here's where the hole was in my game. How do I make the correction?
So but you never knew when you were looking year over year and you're up 20, 30, 40%.
Yeah,
right?
You don't take the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. So cool. You got anything else?
No, I mean, personally, super excited. Again, my personality is one that when it gets more difficult, it's time to pour in more.
Yeah.
I know you're the same way, the grinder mentality. So we're definitely looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Again, this is where we grow market share. Our belief is right now, Roman Automotive is time to grow, time to obviously protect, time to develop our team, but more than anything, just flat out own it. And what we really want to focus on from here on out for the end of the year is how do we show people that our mission statement, driving relationships, awesome experiences, making sure it's through our core values, how do we actually live that out? Because there's going to be so many people that are just grasping for any opportunity. This is our chance to make sure we develop. So for anyone out there that's hearing this that wants to be a part of a team that's growing, a team that's definitely going to own it, a team that's going to develop you into be a business leader, let us know because Roman Automotive is on that path to make sure that we grow in a market where other dealers are going to sit back and complain about how they've lost all of these amazing things they had 3 years ago.
All right. And as always, please comment if there's anything you want us to cover or if you feel like there's anything we got wrong. This is the Driving Relationships Podcast. I'm Austin.
I'm Zach. Thanks for joining.